when it comes to budgeting, we don't want to think about being restrictive. Like, I would definitely say, like, if you get a lot of enjoyment out of sports betting and, going to Ralph's and getting snacks, like, you should be doing that. You should be spending your money that way if that's what you enjoy. But you just want to make sure that you have your priorities set. And if you are spending too much of your money on sports betting and snacks at Ralph's, then you need to like be conscious about like, okay, do I need to make any changes so that I can more align my spending with my priorities? So like we're definitely not preaching and you can spend your fucking money on whatever you want, but we just want to make sure that you're spending your money in a consistent way with what you prioritize. So, welcome back to Money Misfits. I am Professor Heath, your host. I have three awesome guests that I can't wait to introduce. Before I do that, I'm just going to remind everybody or let everybody know that this is another segment of Money Misfits that I'm calling College Cash Conversations, where I just sit down with students and the college students specifically, and we just talk about things that are related to money. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the dreaded budgeting word. I know that when we hear that, a lot of negative thoughts come to mind. So it's almost not even so much budgeting as much as it is like, where did my money go? Or what am I spending my money on? Just being conscious about the way that we spend money is kind of like the point of today's conversation. So again, I said I had three guests. I have Umit, Sophia, and Michael. They've all been either current or former students of mine. And I think what I might have you guys do is just introduce yourself, maybe share your major and then where you currently are in life. Like, are you going to CSM still? Are you at a 4-year university? Have you graduated? Do you live at home? Just give me some sense of like your background. And maybe in addition to your background, just like a brief story about who you are, I think would be really cool as well. Cause I know some of you've got really unique backgrounds. So yeah, Michael, do you want to hit it off?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Michael McDermott. I'm a former student at Cal, or sorry, not. I currently go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I'm currently a senior. I was a former student of Professor Heath's in accounting at the College of San Mateo. So a little bit about me. I'm from Burlingame, California. School was really never for me. In high school, I had about, I think it was like a 2.3 GPA, 2.4 GPA. A lot of my friends were always very smart and they were kind of pushing me to go to a 4-year university. Throughout high school, I had a lot of hardships and everything. I took care of my mother that was battling stage 3 cancer twice throughout high school. Moved into project housing, got evicted, had the whole world fall on my shoulders. And one way I broke out of that was kind of getting a leap of faith and pursuing my education at the College of San Mateo. And so now I'm a current 4th year, hopefully graduating during the spring. And my major is business and marketing.
Dude, I totally appreciate you sharing the side of your story that deals with your mom and
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that people are like able to hear everything. If I'm able to help anybody or anything like that, especially with financial aid as well, because I received the full financial aid index and figuring it out on my own right now.
I'm
So
definitely bringing you back. So we went through the list of topics that we're going to cover in this series. If financial
mhm,
aid came up, so I'm definitely going to have you come back for that episode as well.
absolutely, yeah,
And
of
we could
course,
share more of your story throughout this episode and that episode.
perfect, yeah, no problem.
Umit, you want to go next?
Yes. Hello. I'm Umit. I was a recent student of Professor Heath's accounting classes. I went to UC Irvine studying business and international studies, but I had the opportunity to become a financial coach at the Samaritan House, where I was able to coach two different clients on their financial empowerment journey, and especially like budgeting. And that inspired me to help with like financial literacy. And currently, I'm um, in accounting auditing.
Did you graduate already? You got to like it seems like yesterday every time
Yes, I graduated this past June, but I'm still taking a couple of classes just to build my accounting skills.
I appreciate the sharing your story. Um, Sophia, you want to go next? You feel comfortable sharing your story?
Sure. Okay, so my name's Sophia Baca. I'm a current student at CSM in Mr. Heath's personal finance class. Uh, I got my associates in art already, and I'm just kind of going through classes currently. In terms of my upbringing, I'm admittedly was quite sheltered and kind of spoiled growing up, so I'm slow going at becoming like more functional. But I actually have well, it's a family employed job, but making my own money to a degree, so I'm getting used to that and easing myself into being a functional adult at like a rate that's not too overwhelming for myself, basically.
Yeah, I'm still working on being a functioning adult as well, Sophia. So don't feel awkward. It's like a lifelong journey for me, and I still haven't fucking perfected it. So welcome to the club. All right. Well, again, Sophia, like Omid and Michael, I appreciate you sharing your story. Um, and I'm excited because I think the three of you have very different backgrounds when it comes to like paying attention to your spending and budgeting and so like it'll be really interesting I think for people to listen to each of your three perspectives and I'm even happy to share my perspective. um Sophia, like I there's a lot of things that I've never been very good at as an adult, but budgeting and like keeping track of the way that I spend money has been like kind of second nature to me. I almost enjoy doing it. And so I almost even obsess about it in some sense. Um, so yeah, like I feel like I probably have a different perspective from you guys, which tends to be on the anal side. But anyway, why don't we just to like break the ice and make sure that we keep this light, right? I don't want to be too preachy and I don't want us to be pretending like we have the answers. So just on that, in that vein, keeping it simple and light, let's just start with if I looked at the last 10 things that you purchased, what would we see? And like, is there anything in that list that your grandma would give you shit for?
I mean, I could start if you guys would like me to speak. Yeah, I could start. So for sure, um, not the best spender. So a few things would be kind of like last night, my girlfriend came over, so we went to Ralph's and bought snacks and, candy and cookies. Probably not the best idea for somebody who has EBT as well. So it's probably not the best to spend my money that way. But for sure, yeah, food, sports. This past weekend, me and my buddies actually put some money down on a parlay, which also did not hit. So that was not a good decision as well. Luckily, I only lost 20 bucks, but wasn't that big of a deal, but definitely could do a lot better.
That's totally within reason. And it's funny that you mentioned sports betting because that conversation has come up in my own house. And then it came up again today with a student of mine. And like, I personally think sports betting is totally fine as long as it's within reason, right? So you're never going to win any money at it. And like, if you consistently do it, you're definitely going to lose. But it's a form of entertainment. And if it makes watching the games more enjoyable, and man, you've only got $3 riding on it, like, what the fuck is the problem with that? And
That's
then
why I like to think, yeah.
yeah, and then like, like buying snacks and maybe that not being the best idea. Like again, I can't help but preach, but like when it comes to budgeting, we don't want to think about being restrictive. Like, I would definitely say, like, if you get a lot of enjoyment out of sports betting and, going to Ralph's and getting snacks, like, you should be doing that. You should be spending your money that way if that's what you enjoy. But you just wanna make sure that you have your priorities set, and if you are spending too much of your money on sports betting and snacks at Ralph's, then you need to, like, be conscious about, like, "Okay, do I need to make any changes so that I can more align my spending with my priorities?" So, like, we're definitely not preaching, and you can spend your fucking money on whatever you want, but we just wanna make sure that you're spending your money in a consistent way with what you prioritize. So, I appreciate you sharing. It didn't sound like anything that you've been spending money on is something your grandma would give you shit about, so that's
Yeah.
good. When it comes to spending, like, if we're talking about a scale about paying attention to, like, how much you spend, would you say you're like a frugal genius, or I'm scared to check my account? Like,
Honestly, sometimes so it honestly depends. So for me, at least, if I have a decent amount of money in my account, 'cause I like working and everything, won't I'll kind of spend freely, not really look and not care. But once I have to meet, the Wells Fargo app and see that balance on my credit card that I have to pay off, then I become quite frugal and like then I'm like, all right, then I start to budget and like lock in for that. But then it's kind of like a continuous cycle for me that okay, now I get money paid off, and I kind of stay stagnant.
got it. And do you spend any money? Here's, like, the golden question. Do you save any of your money? Do, like, you put it in a separate account, or do you invest at all?
So I
Just
was
like,
actually
just get paid and then spend until it's 0, get paid again and spend until 0?
I would say, well, I don't really go to a 0, so mine's, like, a little different just because my savings so, like, during the summer, my savings account was strictly for rent, so I was saving, like, extra excess money on, like, PG&E, electric, like, just stuff I know I'm gonna need in the future, so my savings is basically all goes to my rent, so I don't really touch my savings, but when I do receive, like, financial aid money, every quarter, which is once every, I think, 4 months, 3 months, because there's 3 quarters, I put like around like an extra $500 of that into my savings just in case if I need to take out any money or if the PG&E bill's higher than I expected, just kind of have a little bit of like a rainy day fund in that savings.
Omid, you wanna go next?
Um, I would say my last transactions has been mostly like spending with friends, like on a matcha drink or um, just go to a restaurant. But otherwise, mostly towards like groceries or just hobbies. Like I would buy I volunteer at a greenhouse, so I would buy like a plant each time I come. So that builds up.
And how much do
So
you
yeah.
do you keep track of how much you're spending at some of those categories?
Yes, I tend to use like the Chase app, which has already the budget built in. So you could categorize what categories you have and then plan how much monthly how much you could spend on each category. So I tend to be like more conscious of how much I would spend for each
Nice.
category.
I'm thinking that you're gonna be the adult in the room in this conversation to meet. And so, like, I obviously asked Michael how he felt, whether he was, like, leaning towards frugal genius or scared to check his account. I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, you sound like you're the frugal genius of me.
Occasionally, I sometimes do impulse buys or like sometimes not too aware of how much I have, but sometimes I'm more like conscious of like, okay, I need to develop like a plan to how much I could spend each week. So
And
depends.
nothing comes to mind that your grandma would be horrified if she found out you spent money on? Man,
Not that I know of. No.
you guys are so boring. Alright, Sophia, you feel like sharing your
Uh, yeah. In terms of last 10 transactions, it was like mainly repaying back my friends for food because it's easier when we go to restaurants to just one person pays and then we pay them back. and then some stuff I bought at a thrift store and Ren Fair tickets. That's nothing too uh, crazy,
It
really.
doesn't sound crazy. And do you feel like I'm gonna ask you the same questions I'm asking Umit and Michael. Do you feel like you're a frugal genius or scared to look at your checking account?
I'd say maybe just plain frugal. I try not to spend any money at all, really. And I keep a physical ledger that I keep track of my transactions through. So I have to look at myself regardless to keep up with it. But I tend to keep the like mindset of spend as little as possible, and unless I don't have a choice, not more than what I make in a week.
That's funny. You and I are very similar because I also, when I was your age, in fact, when I dropped out of high school and I didn't have a very formal education and I never really talked about money with my parents. But I remember I was living on my own, and at 16 and 17, I was keeping we didn't have computers then, or I didn't. So I was, like, keeping track of what I was spending on in a journal, and, like, I was, like, stupid enough to be doing drugs, but smart enough to be journaling, like, how much I was spending money on, and I feel like it's always been part of who I am, even when I was a hoodlum. And then the whole like, just not wanting to spend money, like, I'm totally with you. I wouldn't say I'm cheap, but I just don't really enjoy spending money on things. It's like, yeah, I would rather go to a nice on a nice vacation, and even then, it's hard for me to, like, spend money on certain things when we do that. I just have this personality trait where it's hard for me to spend money. Like, I feel like I'm gonna run out of money at some point, or I don't want it to run out, or I want to open up my savings and investing accounts and always see more money in there than I had the last time I opened my account. And so, like, if I spend any money when I open it up, it's gonna be lower than what I looked at last time. And it's this weird I have this weird personality where I just don't like spending money either.
What works out for me is I'm generally a very indecisive person, so I, like, really think through whenever I come across an item I want to decide whether to get it or not, like, very deeply
Yeah,
think
same
through it.
here. Like, I'll waffle, like, I don't do it with things in the grocery store, but when it comes like, when I bought a c I refused to buy a car for years and years and years, and I just bought one over the last, like, 3 years, and man, I, like, obsessed about how much I was spending on it, like, whether it was the right car and whether I should buy something less expensive, and yeah, I obsessed over it, and I delayed for the longest time. And look, I've got plenty of money to buy a car, like, it's not an issue, but it's just one of those things that is, like, it's part of who I am. And just to give you a heads up, Sophia, like, a lot of studies have measured the personality traits of millionaires, and one of the common personality traits is millionaires tend to be savers, not spenders. And so, like, you have the potential to be a millionaire because you have that key ingredient, which is you save rather than spending. So, like, I don't know. To me, it's again, it's something that I think we have in common. All right, so let's say so Michael, I don't know if this is going to be something that you're going to be able to answer, and I'm hoping Omid can answer this. And unfortunately, given Omid is like the super stud financial planner, she's probably not going to have anything interesting to say. But I'm wondering if when so let's back up for a second. For those of us who for those of you that are listening to this, Umit and Sophia are taking my personal finance class. And one of the things that we're doing in that class is we're analyzing a previous month's spending and then using that observation to create a budget for the following month. And then we were sort of doing our best to live within that budget. So Umit and Sophia, they have like a level of insight into their spending that a lot of us don't actually have. And so I'm excited to ask a few questions as it relates to like the activity where you guys looked at your previous spending. When you did that, was there anything in your spending that surprised you or you weren't expecting? For instance, was there like a subscription that you signed up for that you forgot you were paying for and you just noticed? Or was there something that was you just didn't realize you were spending that much money on a particular item? Like, what were the surprises when you guys paid attention to what you were actually spending?
So at least for me, one surprising thing or subscription was I have a gym membership here as well. It's like Planet Fitness, and I was back home, right, for the whole summer. And so I'm looking at like my statements and everything, and I had reoccurring payments every month of a gym membership I wasn't using. I also had a membership in Chegg that I wasn't using. Like HBO Max, like kind of like TV shows and everything. And after a while, I kind of like added up how much it was, and each of them were kind of around like $70 each. So I kind of just burned like probably around like $200. So one thing that I kind of stuck to was kind of just checking every month to see what subscriptions I have. And it's also kind of hard to cancel the subscriptions, which is kind of bizarre. So one thing
That is so not bizarre. That's like by design.
Yeah, it's well, because I was starting I mean, personally, I was starting to get pretty pissed off because I was calling all these people and they weren't able to do it, so I just said, "Screw it, I'm going to Wells Fargo, the credit card company," and I got my money back, which was pretty nice, and then I actually found out that my Chegg account, I, like, discontinued it a while ago, and I had another Chegg account that was, like, still charging me for about, like, 7 months, and I made a new account, so I was getting double charged, and so I put a couple bucks back
Nice.
on my pocket once I
Dude,
talked to my credit.
so 2 things, a few things really. Like I was just telling this story, I think in the last episode, but like the smartest people in the world are literally figuring out how to steal your money. They're not sending people to the moon. They're literally like, how are we gonna get Michael to sign up for this subscription? And then how are we gonna like make it impossible for him to cancel? Right? That's what the smartest people are doing in the world. So it's not surprising that you have subscriptions that sometimes you don't remember you even have them. And then two, they're really hard to get rid of. In fact, Amazon just got sued for making the cancellation of its Prime membership super complicated to maneuver through. They just got sued, like a huge class action lawsuit. And then the third thing, just by way of accident, like I found the best way to like flush out the system, like get rid of, like cancel everything, is to call your bank and tell them that you lost your ATM card or your credit card, and then they'll issue a new one. And when they issue a new one, they cancel your previous one, which then cancels all of the recurring subscriptions. And
That's what I
so, like,
did. That's what I did.
it forces you to sort of like build from the ground up. It's like, okay, like I lost my gym membership, I lost my subscription to Netflix, I lost everything. And so I physically have to go back in and sign up for the things that I don't feel I can live without. So if it gets too complicated and you get too frustrated, you can do that as like a fucking nuclear option.
What I did actually, like, literally, that's exactly what I did because I just didn't wanna keep going to the different websites and canceling it, so I just
Nice.
canceled the card.
Nice. Okay. Umit, you want to go next?
Yes, to mention that I had like the Amazon account and it was like harder to cancel, especially like with the student version. And I found it like you had to go through a lot of process to order to cancel it. And yeah, it was a process. But also when we booked like flights during like the pandemic, after the pandemic, to like go to Mexico with family. Like one airline made it so difficult to like get a refund because one of my family members got COVID and they weren't able to like refund that process. We had to like call them like 6 weeks. But the easier way was to call our credit card company and say it was like we couldn't go and like send the receipts and like proof of. So it was easier to get back money from the credit card company compared to the um, airline
Yeah,
company.
sounds familiar. What's your biggest spending category, you think?
I would say mostly like when I spend time with friends, like maybe miscellaneous, like going to like movies or going to like um restaurants or
Yep.
cafes. Also like probably like going to different events. Like recently we went to like a concert for my sister. Um and it was pretty
Nice.
fun, but you have to like budget how much money
I
you could
agree.
spend.
Yeah, we just bought tickets for No Doubt. In fact, you guys might even not even know who the fuck that is. Um, but yeah, we just spent $800 a ticket to go see No Doubt in Vegas. And so I'm totally with you. That's like one of our food is definitely our biggest spending category besides the obvious like our mortgage, but entertainment like live shows, that's a huge priority for us and in our house. And so we do spend quite a bit of money on that stuff. How about you, Sophia? Like anything that was surprising to you in the way that you spent your money and what tends to be the single biggest category that you spend money on? And you might have already answered that.
When I was looking back, when I was recording the budget, I think it was food or personal spending. Then again, it was August is kind of an outlier because it's my birthday month, so I went out a bit more than I normally would. But I think one surprising thing, not necessarily reflection from looking at my budget, is how much gift giving I have to do now that I'm, like, making my own money. Usually, I would, like, draw something, but I do not have the energy for that anymore. So that takes up more of my spending than I
Nice.
expected.
Any subscription horror stories?
Um, Not really. I've only ever subscribed to one thing myself so far, and that was for Photoshop a couple years
Yep.
ago for a class. And I knew going in that it'd probably be difficult to cancel at the end, but I had an alarm set to cancel it once the semester ended, and it didn't take as long as I thought it would. I think there was a couple things where it was like, Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure you
Yeah.
want to
Fuck
cancel this?" And I was like, "Yeah."
yeah, that's yeah,
There's other software versions just as good as Photoshop.
there's yeah, they definitely make it difficult to cancel the subscriptions. I personally have a bunch of subscriptions that um I even know they're recurring and I know how much of a headache it's going to be to try to cancel them that they've probably like charged me I don't know between 70 and $100 over the last 4 or 5 months just because I'm either too busy or too lazy to go in and try to figure out how to cancel them. And it's like, again, it's aggravating, but I can't get too aggravated because I'm actually not even trying and I know they're there. So, yeah. All right, well, I feel like I want to switch gears now and ask you guys like when you think of budgeting, like what comes to mind? And then are you familiar with any types of budgets? Right. And so before maybe you respond, I'll give you a heads up. Like there's all sorts of different types of budgets that you can use. Like maybe not types, but methods of budgeting. So there's a common one that's referred to as like the 50-30-20 rule, where you spend 50% of your income on things we would consider needs, 30% on things that we consider wants, and then 20% you would hopefully allocate to saving and investing. Another budgeting approach would be, I think, what Umit and Sophia did in my project on campus, which is referred to as like a zero-based budget, where you create your entire budget for an upcoming month based on starting at zero and saying, okay, well, listen, if I'm going to make $2,000 next month, how am I going to spend every single dollar? And I'm just going to, if I don't have um, a, a, a label for the spending, then it just kind of automatically defaults to savings. But a zero based budget basically identifies a spot for every single dollar you anticipate making. And that's the one that most people, I think about when they think about budgeting. And it's what I think a lot of students, especially younger students, get put off by budgeting because of they think that's what budgeting is. And then I'm not going to go through all the different types, but I do want to hit on two more. There is a method called pay yourself first, which is it doesn't even really matter what you spend your money on as long as the very first thing that you do when you get paid is take some money out of your account that you typically use and put it into a savings account that you don't have easy access to or an investment account. So they refer to that as pay yourself first. And then with whatever you have left, it's like, who really cares what you're spending your money on because you're doing the most important thing first, which is paying yourself. And then finally, there's a fourth approach that I think I heard Umit referring to, which is what's referred to as the envelope approach. And the envelope approach basically says, okay, I'm going to set aside, you know, $200 for going out. And like when I was your age, we would literally have an envelope and we would put $200 into it and we would pull money out of that envelope, which is why it's referred to the envelope system. However, you can still do that, but you can do it with apps and you can do it electronically and it's still like allocates your money, but it's not physical envelopes, it's all virtual. So with that in mind, like I'm just curious, like do you guys feel like you employ any of those approaches? Do you feel like when you hear the word budgeting, it triggers negative thoughts? Like what's your thinking behind budgeting?
So I was gonna say, as far as me for budgeting, when I think about the word budget, it kind of scares me because in my mind it tells me, okay, here's the money you can't spend. So it's kind of hard to kind of, like you said, like the pay your back or pay yourself back method. That's also another method like I kind of use. Specifically kind of like the envelope method that I use, but instead, like if I'm not trying to spend money, kind of treat it as like a reward system. So if I get paid, like I'll pull like a certain amount of money out because I found with at least myself, it's a lot harder for me to spend my money on silly things that I wouldn't usually spend on if I use cash because I see the money dwindling away like in my own hands. But if I use my credit card on the other hand, the payments don't process for like 2 days. So if I think I spent $50, but I'm really spending $200, I don't really know. So that's kind of when I've found that I kind of go into a little hole almost if I use my card, but now I just use cash mostly to help me budget.
And so when you go to do you ever gamble? Like, have you
I
ever gone
did.
to
I have. Yeah, I went.
like, have you ever wondered why you can't just I mean, you can go to the table and use cash, but have you ever wondered why it's more common to use chips rather than cash?
Honestly, I was actually thinking about that because so when me and my buddy went for during December, we went to Harrah's in like Nevada, kind of like near
Yeah,
Tahoe.
yeah.
And so we had a bunch of chips, but they were like $5 chips, $10 chips. Not but we had a bunch of them. And then so we thought we had a ton of money and we had like $100. And then we made $100 and we only got like $200 chips. So it felt like we had a lot less than we actually did, which was probably better 'cause then we just got the hell out of there and got lunch, so
Nice. Yeah, so the casinos are like you have an emotional attachment to cash, which is exactly what you were referring to when you were talking about the physical envelope approach, where you know how much you're spending and it's an emotional reaction when you see yourself spending cash. And so casinos are like, yeah, we want to remove the emotional attachment to cash that people have, because there's some people like Professor Heath or Sophia that just like we don't like spending cash. And so when I see myself putting cash on the table, it's like, man, I'm not going to put as much on there as I normally would because I have this emotional attachment. So a method that the casinos employ to encourage me to bet more than I normally would is for me to disassociate how much I'm actually spending by changing the trigger from cash to chips. And I have less of an emotional attachment to the chips. So I'm more likely to like push them all in on certain bets. So yeah, I like your use of the envelopes and having an emotional attachment to spending cash. And it's so easy to use your credit card and just not be conscious about like a swipe here and a swipe there. It's easy to sort of forget really how much you're actually spending when you're swiping and you're not really paying attention to seeing your account balance going down every time you swipe, where you do when you're pulling money out of an envelope. Sophia, or sorry, let's go with Omit. Omit, the super king budgeting app pro. Like, let's hear what you do.
I would say I use similar method to like Michael in terms of like personally like, giving myself saving enough money in like a savings account or like brokerage account, as well as saving for like retirement each time. So each year is like putting the maximum amount in Roth IRA, and then allocating for other spendings. As like when I studied abroad, I had to like figure out how to pay for like the groceries as well as like traveling expenses and like Airbnb with friends. So it was like easier to like allocate, okay, how much funding I could have for each category and also have fun at the same time. So it was an interesting experience, as well as like when I was a financial coach, I saw like, other people's like perspectives on money and how they budget, and they use like the zero balance, or like the when we use a spreadsheet or like an app called like Mint, where you could categorize like the categories and be able to see, okay, I spent overspent this month on this category, and or I over underspent on this category. So I could see like how to like allocate which category and how to like strategically think, okay, I need to do this month, and like how would I save money for myself as well.
Nice. Yeah, you need to share as much as you can with your experience helping others. We need to pry into their information. We'll keep them anonymous, but yeah, you should share away. Sophia, what about you? What any of the particular approaches that I listed? Do you use any? Does budgeting sound like a negative thing?
Well, it doesn't necessarily sound like a negative thing, but prior to this class, I used more just keeping a vague guideline, like I said earlier, about not spending more than what I make in a week at a time. Because rarely do any plans I make, or rarely, if ever, do they work out. So having a vague, hard line in my brain works out far better. But the spreadsheet method we've used for this project is probably what I would switch to using because it feels the most straightforward in terms of how I understand things.
Nice. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
I also want to add in about what Michael mentioned earlier with the casino and the chips and stuff. I noticed the same thing when I was in Nevada just a couple months ago. I wasn't in the actual casino part, I was in the arcade, actually, and I noticed from the last time I was there, uh, they'd switched to using, instead of tickets and coins, they switched to using just a card that you uploaded stuff on, and that was far easier to realize when you could no longer play any more games or anything. I don't think the, like, prize desk was even manned by anyone or anything.
Even better. Sounds like my kind of arcade. We used to. So I grew up with hoodlums, And so we grew up, we had Atari, but we didn't have much. We had Pong and we had Atari. But if you really wanted to play any of the good video games, you had to go down the street to the liquor store, or you had to go to the movies, or you went to like Chuck E. Cheese or an arcade. And it was really like we didn't have any money, so it was always really expensive. So we learned how to like tape a string to a quarter, and then we would drop the quarter into the machine like super gently. And then as soon as it would like trigger like starting the game, we would pull the coin back out, and we were experts at it. And then like we got so good at it, we would then like push the machine away from the wall and open up the back and automatically set like free games. We became experts at stealing at stealing video games. So anyway, your unmanned prize desk like triggers a lot of fond memories for me. Okay, so let's think about how we're going to end this conversation. And before we start thinking about how we're going to end the conversation, do you guys feel like there's anything that we're not talking about that we should, like anything with respect to the way that college students spend money that we're not talking about that we should be talking about?
At least with my experiences, I take a look back at like my days in community college and kind of, I don't know, kind of get mad at myself for taking so many like trips or whatever. Because I went to New York with my buddies, and then that was like $700, and it's like, dang, I could really use $700 right now. But more so, kind of eating out and not building those independent skills. Because at least with me, I cook like every day now. So I could have saved a ton of money if I utilized some of those skills in my community college days. But then again, it was so easy to kind of spend money because there's nothing really going on as far as like fun things to do, at least with myself, when I was at community college, because all my friends are gone. So I would kind of waste money or spend a lot of money on visiting them or eating out, like I said. And I just wish I kind of tuned in more on kind of the saving aspect of those actions.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective.
I would say for me, when I transferred to like UCI, I had to like be aware of like how much like not like eat out as much because my friends would go out and eat out, but I would like either go to like Target or Trader Joe's or like Albertsons to like get enough food for the week, and then like have allocate how much of the meals I could cook myself, and just make like a friend dinner, like get together and like cook ourselves so we would budget and like also like have a good time together cooking and
That's really
enjoying.
interesting that you bring that topic up because it wasn't even on my radar as something important to talk about, but my two previous guests on the previous episode were saying they wanted a whole episode dedicated to like the way money feeds into your relationships. And so like it could be your partner or it could even be friends. And so Amit, when you were saying like when you're on a limited budget and you're friends with people who may have more of the ability to spend more on maybe going out to eat, like the whole money and friendship that can get I could see how it would make me feel anxious if I didn't have a lot of money to go out and eat with my friends and I therefore couldn't participate in those activities. That's kind of an interesting dynamic where you really need to surround yourself almost with people who are in a similar money situation to you are so that you feel like you're able to participate in a lot of the same activities as your friends. Is that kind of what do you think you're getting at that?
I was thinking we were able to like with friends, we were able to like buy and like divide up the purchase amount, and also like besides saving enough money, we were able to like make a lot of different dishes from our different cultures, and also like enjoy like the wholesome like moment. Like it was like one of the memories of college of being able to spend with different people and being able to cook or bake different goods as well as share it with other people. So it was more of like, having a good time as well as like being able to like talk and like make something
Nice.
important.
Very cool. How about you, Sophia? Anything that we haven't talked about that you feel like we could talk about?
I guess the only thing relevant to me that uh might be relevant here is that having a plan, more of a solid plan from the start of like what major, what classes you want to go through starting through college. Because I switched mine a couple of times before I finally settled on one I felt the most comfortable with that I liked and could accomplish.
Um, all right. So to me, right, a nice way to maybe wrap this up is to, maybe it'll be, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we've already talked about it. But when I hear the word budget, like I'm not thinking about restricting myself to certain things. As much as I said I don't like spending money, like I'm not really budgeting to make sure that I'm not spending on certain things. The reason why I'm budgeting is because like I have limited resources, right? If I had enough money to do whatever I wanted, I literally would not budget. I wouldn't care. But since I'm like I'm constrained by my cash inflows, I need to make sure that what I really want out of life is something that I'm like prioritizing in my spending. And to me, that's the most important thing when it comes to budgeting. I want to just make sure that, you know, I'm setting aside an emergency, like I'm saving money for an emergency fund. It's not something that I'm going to use for next month. It's not going to be something that I use in the second semester of the school year. It's setting aside money that is just there always in case something completely unexpected comes up. Or if I have this, like if it's my birthday month and I want to like spend a little bit more in my entertainment category, it could come from that emergency fund, right? So we want to be conscious about what we're spending money on so that we are able to like limit the spending so that we can begin to save, right? And then the other thing we want to like be conscious about spending money on too is we want to make sure that we create this emergency fund so that when something unexpected does happen, we don't have to then fall back onto credit cards and the use of credit cards. It's come up a lot, like, in my classes, it comes up. It's come up, like, over the last few days, it's come up a number of times, and it even came up in an episode, my previous episode to this one, where a student, like, ended up quitting her job, and then something happened at school, and she had to pay for an entire semester using credit cards because she didn't have money set aside for emergency. And so, like, I think what I'm trying to get at is conscious spending. It's not about restrictions, or at least I would hope at your age, it's not necessarily about restrictions, but it's about like making sure your money's working for you and making sure that the way that you spend money is consistent with your priorities.
I was gonna say, one last thing, kind of connect with your point about like the rainy day fund. I have an example or personal experience of kind of like spending more than I had. So, like for example, for some reason, I had the bright idea in community college to buy a 20-year-old Mustang and like work on it because I didn't know what to do. And then because I had, like, grew up around old muscle cars and stuff, so then I bought it, and it was fun and everything, and gave me joy, and it wasn't that expensive. I worked hard for it and everything, and, one thing that was tough is, like, I spent all my money with this car. It was, like, 5 grand, and I didn't really have any emergency fund to kind of, "Hey, if this thing breaks down, then I'm screwed and I don't have any money." So 3 days after I bought the car, the fuel pump went out on it, and I didn't know much about cars then or anything, so I'm looking at my account and see 150 bucks in it, and, the guy at the gas station, the mechanic is telling me it's gonna be $700 to fix it, and I didn't have the money. So then my dad was happy enough to, like, help me out and everything, but then every month I would, like, pay him back, and one thing that kinda stuck with me as far as budgeting before I graduated was number one, probably don't buy a 20-year-old Mustang when you have no money. And then the second thing was definitely to have enough money to like not only take care of yourself, but take care of the things you use every day. So the thing I used every day was like my car to get back and forth to work. And it sounds fake, but I swear, like 2 days before I was about to, because I got into Cal Poly flow and everything, in 2 days I was about to move in and packed up my car and everything. And I drove to my buddy's house to say hello. It was like midnight. I was driving home and the ball joint on my car exploded. So it basically means like wheels are pointing the two different ways. Can't drive it, right? So then that costed me like $1,000 to fix, but I prepared beforehand to, if you're going to buy a piece of shit car, make sure you have enough money to kind of fix it. And also just what's an example for many things, cars, rent, or whatever you need.
Yeah, I think that's echoing the exact point, right? Which is, I'm not going to try to tell you, dude, come on. Like, why are you buying a 20-year-old fucking car and you're going to sink all this money into it? Like, I'm not doing that. But what I am saying is like the emergency fund, for the exact reason you're bringing up, is what we really want to be paying attention to. And if you really do want to spend $5,000 on something that's a 20-year-old piece of shit, in my mind, like, that's at least consistent with your priorities. And so like you're winning at all the things. People might be looking at the way you spend money and not agree with it, but like for you, it's working for you. And that's what we want to that's the point I think we're trying to emphasize, is that we want to just at least make sure we're getting in the habit of being responsible about the way that we're spending money, so that one, we're spending consistent with our priorities, and then two, we're setting aside money, one, for our future, and two, for emergencies.
On top of that note, growing up, my parents taught us like we got like cash from like birthdays or like holidays, and we would like put our money into our envelopes. My twin brother and I would like figure out, okay, we have this much of money, and we could maybe spend it now or like spend it in the future, and we would usually just save it for the future and like build up enough money until we could buy like a computer or anything, like even anything else that we want to really dream of getting. But it taught us the value of money and like value of being able to um spend. It's not being restricted, but just being able to spend on something you really want and something you want to do in the future. So it taught us the like values of that. And I believe that from my financial coaching experience, I learned that different clients have different like priorities and experiences, and they did figure out that emergency savings helps them a lot, especially like if they want to take anything happens, like you never know what happens in life, right? So uh just to have that savings instead of getting like a loan helps them a lot, because if in a loan you have to pay a lot of interest and high, that brings more like stress and like being able to like pay that off each month. So that helped them with anything that they could have, a like car breakdown, like what Michael mentioned, or like a hospital, anything like that. So it helped like see that approach from a client
I
experience as
like
well.
that. I like that. Yeah, yeah. Like again, like we're thinking about budgeting as being something restrictive, and I think, well, what I'm trying to argue, and it sounds like you guys are agreeing, that like some things in life require like consistent, dedicated savings in order to do. Like, and so a car could be a good example, or a nice vacation could be a good example. And even bigger and broader could be a down payment on a house. Like, those aren't, those are things that are just not going to fall in your lap. And it feels nice to go out to dinner with your friends. That is good, but there are things that are provide more, could provide more value, and they just require more money. And because they require more money, and if you think they do provide more value, it's going to just take longer to work towards that. So we're saying it's not about being restrictive. It's about like accumulating enough wealth to like do things that are beyond what you are currently doing day to day. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Meet.
That's why I value the like impact of having like financial literacy, especially like high school students. Because in high school we didn't have like any business or financial literacy like courses or ability to like plan for future college and like after college. So I believe like I found like the program, like the financial empowerment coach program, and it, like a lot of the coaches were older, like retirement age, but like I learned a lot from them as well as like the client's experience and like just the overall program and where they taught us like the value of just the financial wheel and pyramid and being able to utilize a lot of your resources to build your wealth.
And where would somebody go if they wanted to look into that program?
It's Samaritan House in San Mateo has a lot of different programs, and one of them is financial empowerment program. And they have like an incentive for clients. Like it's like an 8 month program for like the Better Tomorrow program, where you're able to be paired with another coach, and they will have like actual like group sessions where they teach you a lot of the different topics, like budgeting or like having like paying for like down payment or like mortgage or like they have different categories, and with your client you get to work with personally that their goals, like they set a smart financial goal, and they're able within the 8 months they will try to accomplish those two or three goals, and the incentive is like they earn like a money or like a prize at the end, and they get a
Nice.
value of like what
And
they want to achieve.
do they charge a fee for that?
No, it's free. Like the coaches are volunteers, but coaches are volunteers and the clients just get like benefits from like being able to have this education for them.
Do you think the class that you're taking with me right now, you could be honest, do you think that is helpful for people to participate in? Do you feel like you're getting any skills in my class that are commensurate with what you're possibly getting from the Samaritan House?
I would say yes. I enjoy your class in personal finance, and especially in like looking at the different topics you have in each chapter, and like examples of how to like invest and how to like being able to plan for the future. Like compound investment is very beneficial, and like this is important for high school students as well. But I feel like taking this class helps me like think critically of okay, how much for the future, how can I benefit from these skills, especially like being able to like spend enough as well as like save for the future and just think about the different topics mentioned. So it's important. I like it.